All right, there we are. Hello, everyone. This is Melissa and Kelsey Ann coming to you today on the Leaders Impact Lab. And we're going to be talking about moving from small talk to meaningful conversation at work. So an interesting little topic. I don't know about you, but I do not like small talk and I avoid it desperately. However, connection is a big part of influence. So if influence is important to you at work, either because you're collaborating with others, you might be in a management position or in a leadership position of some sort, having the right kind of conversations is going to shift your influence and increase your influence. That's going to help you work better with others, through others, and have better collaboration. So the Leaders Impact Lab, is usually something that we do on the Tuesdays, this live stream, and we haven't been on in a little while. So I just want to give you a little bit of an update. We're moving from Tuesdays to Wednesdays. Since we did the week-long workshop, the Influential Leader Workshop, there's been lots of exciting things happening inside our business, and it's kind of moved our agenda a little bit, how we structure our week, and we've had to make some changes. So today is us getting back to the routine of coming to you every week, but it will be on the Wednesday mornings instead. So my name's Melissa. I'm an executive coach and a management consultant, and I work with leaders such as yourself, have more influence in the workplace and build high-performing teams. And most importantly, I help you empower employees to take their self-responsibility, to take accountability for themselves, and to take action, to take initiative on the work so that you can do less hand-holding and get back to the important strategic work that's on your plate. Kelsey Ann, can you give me give us a little insight into who you are in this conversation?
Sure. My name is Kelsey Ann, and I am your marketing director, right hand, and I am here to offer the employee perspective and how we live what you recommend to your clients. We live it every day. And those values are something that are really important to us in our business.
Yeah. And as we explore leadership challenges, it's really important to look at different perspectives, not just our own, but how are employees living this? And what do they think about this? And what's important to them? And when we make that transition from being an employee to being in management, there is a shift that happens for us. We don't worry about the same things. We don't think about the same things. We don't value the same things anymore. And as we gain authority and we gain power and we move up, the further away we're from that perspective, we just forget because we're not there anymore. Mm-hmm. So it's really important to consider all of the perspectives when we're looking at these challenges. So thank you, Kelsey Ann, for being a willing participant. If you joined us before, we're really candid. We kind of show up with the topic. There's a few things that I want to share with you, but a lot of the conversation we have is spontaneous.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about small talk.
Your favorite topic.
And it's something that comes up a lot when I'm working with a leader and we're looking at building up their influence. We're building their EQ skills. We're building their communication framework. That ability to connect with people, you can't get away from that. You need to be able to do that. But the challenge is time. The challenge is time. So we essentially have to create these really important, meaningful connections in very, very little time. And there's always too much to do, not enough time. So we have to deal with that tension, that reality. So that means that every moment that you have to connect should be meaningful. It should be worth something. It should be building your relationship with the other person. And it should be, here I am shooting all over everyone, ideally,
Yeah.
you're increasing trust, you're increasing connection, you're increasing influence in those little teeny tiny pockets of time that show up. So being able to move away from that small talk that really doesn't mean anything and doesn't add to the quality of your relationship into a meaningful conversation. And it really doesn't take that much time to have a meaningful connection if you know how to do it.
Mhm.
And so that's what I want to share with you today are 5 little teeny tiny shifts that you can be making to transition from small talk to meaningful conversation. What do you think about that, Kelsey Ann?
That sounds a lot better. Small talk is one of those, like, what's safe? What can you actually talk about? And we know what we can't talk about. But even like the weather or family, like some things can be activating for others that we also have to consider depending on where they are in their own space continuum of their life and ongoing stuff. So I think small talk can be weird. Can be
It can
really
be
weird.
weird. And I've been that person like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. I'm stuck with this person. I don't know what to say. This is so awkward. Kind of know each other, kind of don't. What do I say? Where do I start? How do I show up here?
Yeah.
And then I end up fumbling a few things, then the whole thing is just awkward and you can't wait to get out.
Hmm.
Well, that is not a good experience for you. It's not a good experience for the other person. And emotions are contagious. So if you're feeling the awkwardness, the other person is also feeling it. And if they're not feeling it from themselves, they're feeling it from you.
Yeah.
And let's walk away from that.
Yeah. That doesn't feel so great.
Doesn't feel so great. All right. So if you want to transition from small talk to meaningful conversation, item number 1, make time. I'm going to add a little bit to that in a second. But the first thing is make time. You will never find the time. Time won't appear. You're not going to magically work harder and be granted an extra whatever. You have the time that you have. We all have the same amount of time. It's all about how you allocate that time. So can you allocate time, make time for connection? Okay. Doesn't have to be a lot of time. It can be very, very small, but it needs to be some time.
Hmm.
And what I'm going to add to that is make space, make time and make space. Because you can say, okay, I'm about to go and meet with this person. I will dedicate the first 5 minutes to connecting. And then you show up there and you say, hey, Kelsey Ann, how was your weekend? And the whole time that they're answering, you're thinking about, oh yeah, and then we need to talk about that and talk about this and oh my God, and da 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 da, and the thing that's coming up. So if I'm thinking about what I'm going to respond to you, what's the next item on the agenda for our meeting, or what else is happening in our environment, what was this all for?
You're not listening to me.
And have you had this happen to you, Kelsey Ann, where you've, been asked a question, you're answering, and you know that the person's not listening?
They just want to get to the next item on their agenda to tick it off. Okay, asked how her weekend was. Okay, let's proceed to the next thing. Okay, great. Let's, truck along. All right then. Okay, let's truck along then. Right. And you feel invalidated, you feel dismissed. I didn't really feel in those moments because it's happened more than once. Um, that I really mattered, that I mattered to them as a person, that I mattered to the organization. Did it really matter if I had a good weekend or not? No? Well, okay. I guess I'm going to continue doing my work, whether or or not. Right. If I had a really crappy weekend, that's going to affect my work. Again, emotions are contagious.
So you've had that experience. Have you had the other experience where a question was asked and you were listened to? Even if there was other business to tend to, you were listened to.
Absolutely. Every day. No.
And for you, what is the difference and how do you know?
Um, I would say with the way that we do it, your body language. I know you're actively listening. I know you have a superpower of being able to just listen and not being able to think of the next thing, which I admire, because to turn off that thinking brain when you're listening is very, very, very challenging. Um, you always allow for space, so you pause, you're prepared not to respond. And we do sometimes sit on calls because we don't usually meet in person, but we do sometimes sit on calls, and there's silence, there's space for you or for me, which I really appreciate. And it's not awkward, it's just giving us time to think and not filling that dead air just to fill that dead air.
Yeah. So now we're moving into quality, not necessarily quantity. And so there's something, so you pointed to me, so I'm just going to let you in
Absolutely.
on what I do internally. What happens is I will make sure that the agenda, whatever it is that we need to deal with in that moment, there's a short list somewhere that I can refer to. So I dump it out of my brain onto paper before we meet. And I put all of that on a shelf in my mind. So I have a metaphor, a shelf that exists inside my mind. And metaphorically, I take that and I put it. But this is a ritual that I go through in my mind, that I take all the things and I put it there. And then I just sit back and I take in what you're saying. And I don't think, I just take it in. And when you stop talking, I think. And then I respond. Super hard to do. It's a practice. It's a practice, but it is possible. And this could be 3 minutes. And then we can get right back to the agenda. I haven't forgotten anything. It's all sitting on the shelf. I can take it off the shelf. I have my little list. But that 3, 4, 5 minutes of quality time that we've had together has just transformed the next hour of our meeting or our work session or whatever is happening in that moment. So make time, make space. Time in itself is not enough. And you don't have a lot of time to give, so make it count. Give it the space so that it has quality. All right, so ready for number 2?
I am.
Now that you have the time and you have the space, what do I fill it with? And what you do is you fill it with your curiosity. But there is a difference between being curious about what you care about and being curious about what the other person cares about. I'm just going to let that sit. There's a difference between being curious about what you care about and being curious about what the other person cares about.
See, when I hear that, I'm like, okay, what I care about is what I care about. What you care about is the agenda, right? In my head as an employee, but to know that as an employer, you actually care about what's on the table for me makes a difference. Makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
Regardless of what's on the table. Or that you might not necessarily care, but you care to listen and to learn and to understand.
So now the objection that comes up is like, well, it's kind of hard to listen if I don't really care about that topic, right? And I'll just use plants as an example, okay? I do not have any plants in my house. My flower beds have not been kept. They're a mess, okay? I don't do it. I've actually chopped it all up because I'm like, I can't deal with it. And if somebody, offers me a plant as a gift, it will die in the next week. I can guarantee you, I don't know what I've done. I try to follow the instructions, but it does die. And I do not have a thing for plants. I don't care about them. I kill them instantly. They're not my friend. Kelsey Ann, how many plants do you have in your house? I know the answer to this, by the way.
Over 100.
She's crazy about plants. I could care less. However, it's important to her. She cares about it. So sometimes we talk about plants. And I get curious about plants. But I'm curious about what's important about plants to her. Why is it important to her? What does she get out of taking care of those plants? What needs is that satisfying? What is that doing for her? What is this gift that she has? And is that a gift that could be used in other ways? Is there something else that she wants to bring to the table? Is that part of her resilience? Is that part of how she takes care of herself? How does this all make sense? So it's not so much about the topic. It's more about what's underneath the topic. And that's what I get curious about. Make sense?
Mm-hmm, totally.
All right, so fill that space. Now that you have time and space, you fill it with curiosity. So as you're being curious, you're going to do number 3, which is ask the important questions. Ask the important questions. If you ask a data question, you are going to get a data answer. Sample. What did you do this weekend? Not very much. But if I shift this question into what was important to you about this weekend? Or what was exciting about this weekend? What did you think about this past weekend?
It's not a data response.
So when you change the way that you're asking questions, you change the type of information, the type of responses you're going to get back. And now you have meat. You've got something to work with. When you ask a data question and all they give back are these short data responses, it stays awkward.
Mm-hmm.
There's nowhere to go. What did you do this weekend? Well, I went to a family reunion. Cool. How many people were there? 100. Wow, that's a big family. Yeah. Or, what did you do this weekend? I went to a family reunion. Cool. What was it? What was fun about your family reunion? Well, I got a chance to organize a blah, blah, blah with the kids. Oh, do you enjoy kids? What did you like about that? What was important? Like you just start uncovering the real stuff. You're doing a lot of thinking there. I see
Mhm.
the wheels turning. What's
Yeah.
coming up for you?
Well, I'm reminded, um, and again, I noticed it because my previous employers haven't necessarily always done their exploring the way that you do your exploring in and you do this in person and you do this virtual too, which I think in today's world, in this, hybrid life that we live, um, you get curious and you pull on threads. So based on my responses, you always have something that you explore. You see the thread, you see that my excitement, and I know this because we've talked about this. Um, and then you pull on that thread to explore it even more because you see how me talking about that topic, again, it's not about the topic, it's about my energy behind the topic that you can see. And again, I don't want to be putting, but this is just my understanding of the way that you've done it in the past, and that makes a big difference. It makes a big difference. And for an employer to pick up on those threads and pull on the appropriate ones and see the energy and the passion behind it, you might not care about plants, but you care about the fact that I care about plants. And that makes me feel better because you actually care about something that brings me joy. Again, it's not about the plants. You could give two craps about the plants. And to me,
I
you
don't
just
get the idea of
haven't
plants,
received the
but
right plants because you know what? There's some fussy plants. Ferns, not friends, not friends with ferns. And that's just as I have one in the background, but that's the only one that I've been able to keep alive. No, it's really showcased and highlighted the difference at corporate level, the difference within larger organizations where you just feel like you're an employee member. And that
yeah,
doesn't feel good.
but you don't need to feel that way in a large organization. Here's the thing. There is someone, there is leadership here. There are people in play that their job is supporting you,
Mhm,
and they can help you feel important in these little moments with the right skills. These are all skills. This is not personality. We're not talking about no capacity to do this. It's what you do in those little moments.
mhm,
And these are skills.
mhm.
Talking from someone who avoided conversations and connecting, I went right down to business because that is what I'm comfortable with. I know this inside and out, but my relationship suffered and I've had to build the skills. So asking important questions, and you know they're important when you see the energy behind it, you see the excitement. There's going to be giveaways, so don't listen just to the words. Go beyond the words that are spoken, because people will tell you what you want to hear, or they're going to tell you what they think you want to hear, what's important to you, so go beyond those surface answers. If you don't want to be stuck in surface small talk, go beyond the surface. You actually have a lot of influence in this conversation. And questions help navigate, it helps direct the conversation. So if you're asking questions, you actually hold a lot of power and authority here as to where this conversation is going to go and how deep it's going to go.
And I want one thing too, when you're asking me questions, it's not about you, it's about me. and my response. And a lot of the times I find when you're in past experience, when you were talking with management or a supervisor, it's not really about you. It's about them and their agenda and how you're going to act on, for them.
Yeah. And then that really brings me to that caution of asking questions, because if you're firing off question after question after question, it can start to feel like there's an interrogation happening. And that is no longer building the relationship. This is no longer investing in a connection, building the trust, or building your influence. Now you're actually creating distrust and you're creating a shutdown.
Mhm.
So making sure that you're balancing your questions with acknowledgement. How do they know you're listening? Like, for real, think about in a conversation, what are you showcasing to the other person so that they understand that you are listening?
I think it depends on the person because um, I know when we talk, we look at each other, we lean in, we're present, we're not necessarily doing other things. But I know from experience with you, when you're listening, a lot of the times you're writing things down because that's how you process it. So it's not that you're necessarily taking notes on what I'm saying, but you're taking notes so that you can understand deeper and ask me those questions of, did I hear you right? Did I understand this correctly?
Yeah.
Um, so you're acknowledging and doing that piece with me in a different way. What you're not doing is, we're having conversations, then you're on your phone or you're talking with somebody else. You're present and that makes a difference whether we're sitting side by side having breakfast together or we're, on a work call.
Yeah. And this is the thing with active listening. Active listening is not about me responding to what is being said, but it's me responding in a way that the other person knows I'm listening. That's what active listening is. It's not about my input. It's about them knowing they're being listened to and understood. So
It's
when
the
you are
first time I've
actively,
ever heard it be explained like that, and I'm like, you're totally right.
if I'm actively listening, my agenda is on the shelf. My input, my thoughts, my judgments, it's on the shelf. And what I'm doing is making sure that I understand you and I'm responding to you in a way that you know without a doubt that I am listening and I am understanding and I am following you. People ask, like, does that make sense? It's because they're looking for that type of acknowledgement. So if you are giving that type of acknowledgement, they're not going to be worried and asking if it makes sense.
Mhm.
You can give it to them before. And it's not about saying you're right. It's about saying, I hear you. I'm hearing this. I'm understanding that. Is that correct? So, okay, so I just heard this and I heard that. How are these two pieces related to each other for you? When you say X, what does that mean? Can you give me an example? Okay. Yeah, that's starting to make sense to me. These are all examples. There's 1,000 different ways that you can do this, but there is an acknowledgement of what is being said. So balance out your questions with acknowledgement. Don't just move on. Don't just say, okay, great, we've got an answer. We can move to the next item, right? Because you've just, by doing that and having that tendency to run to the next thing, you've just said, okay, there's things on the table and they don't really matter. We're just going to move on. Or I didn't really listen. I'm just ready to move on.
Mhm.
perfectly okay to go exploring. It's perfectly okay to say, okay, well, I'm hearing this and that, but that didn't really make sense to me yet. Would you be willing to explore that a little bit more with me?
Mhm.
So acknowledge. Again, that acknowledgement can be really, really simple. Doesn't have to be a big thing. Doesn't have to take hours. I'm not asking you to become a counselor.
Mm.
I'm asking for you to engage in active listening, which means you will be responding with acknowledgement. Clear?
Clear as mud.
Here's mud. And the last piece is celebrate. People are willing to be honest and transparent with you. Like that is energy. That is, I'm opening up myself to give you things. You're asking me to put things on the table that aren't necessarily comfortable, that requires trust. You know, you're no, there's an earning. You don't just, people don't have to tell you things. They don't have to disclose anything but what they're paid to do, right?
Mhm.
So all of that is a privilege. So taking a moment to celebrate, to say thank you so much. Like, wow, that's beautiful. Or I really appreciate this moment that we have together. I know we have lots of stuff on the plate, but it's really nice to have 5 minutes to just connect.
Mhm.
Or I really appreciate your vulnerability. Reciprocity here. We're asking people to put it out. You need to match them, meet them where they're at.
Mhm.
So celebrate those moments. Don't just move on, but close up the space in a way that feels good, that feels like it was worthwhile. And that's also what we do in coaching. At the end of a coaching session, we celebrate with the person. We celebrate where we got to. We celebrate the insights. We celebrate the next steps. Feels good.
Mhm.
Feels
Clarity.
exciting.
Clarity is kind. And I know we've said that a few times in the last little bit, but it's true. It's true. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
How is small talk different remotely versus in person? So for somebody, and I know we've seen this kind of come up, somebody might not be as comfortable with technology. How do you connect with somebody potentially virtually? Because I know this is, um, you know, trending that more people are working hybrid or working remotely. How do you do this effectively remotely?
Yeah. More challenging. And we miss a lot of cues. And this is not new to people, right? So even though video is great, I can see you, I can see some of your facial expressions. I don't see you as clearly as I see you in person, right? I also don't feel you as clearly as I feel you in person. So there is information. So think about empathy and the fact that through this conversation, I'm using my empathetic skills to pick up on that nonverbal information and that emotional information. So that is not as clear. So I need to pay more attention. But it's also the other way around. You are not seeing all the information either.
Mm-hmm.
So I need to be more intentional in putting forward that nonverbal information. So why is this important? Well, go back to be curious about what's important to them. How do you know what's important to them? That will be in the nonverbals, and it will be in the emotional. It will be in the energetic, the energy. How much energy is behind that response? It's not as clear.
Mm-hmm.
And then asking the important questions. Same thing. You're using your empathy skills here. So if things are harder to pick up on, it just makes it that much harder to pull on the right strings. So how do I do it virtually? I pay closer attention. And I myself want to give more cues. So where I noticed, 6, 7, 8 years ago, you might have not seen me move. I would have had more of a straight face. Now I am more expressive in my body language so that you can see. So if I'm excited, I'm not going to say I'm excited. I say, I'm excited. It's so exciting. It's not fake.
No.
I've just allowed myself to embody more of those emotions so that you can more visibly see them.
Oh, emotions are in the workplace? What? They don't belong there.
So I'm just embodying more of it so that it's easier to see. Tone. There is so many nuances and complexity to tone. You have to just tune into tone more. So people can say the same thing, the same words, 1,000 different ways, and it has 1,000 different meanings. So pick up on tone. Does that answer your question?
It does.
Yeah. What's important for you in that answer?
I think embodying those feelings, I think is and being empathetic, but also understanding what empathy is and what empathy is not is also kind of important there.
A video, a live stream for a different day.
Yes, definitely a different day.
Boundaries
That's a
and
whole different piece.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that you got something. There was a lot to this conversation in a seemingly small topic, right? And there's a lot more. But I want you to think about what is one thing that you could take away that you could start using today. What is one small insight, one small nugget? I'm sure there's 1,000 things that you could walk away with. But the reality is we're not going to change 1,000 things. If you can anchor yourself to one thing that you want to start using today, this is where you're going to start seeing a difference. So what is that one thing that was important to you? I'd love if you shared it in the comments section. If you have questions, I would love to answer them. I do go back to the videos. I do respond to comments in the videos. So please go ahead and leave me a comment. And that's it for today. If you want more about EQ, about communication, empathy, we are doing an EQ Cafe on Friday. So the EQ Cafe's theme this quarter. So I usually do 3 cafes a year. This would be the first one, the first of 3. And we are focused on purpose and optimism. And believe it or not, these make a difference in your communication. We talked about importance and meaning. It's part of purpose. So if you want to join us, it is free. It's here to explore, to practice, to build up the skills. EQ is not something to know. EQ is something to live, to practice, to strengthen. The practice of EQ never ends. Use it or lose it type of situation. So if you want to join in this free event, it's happening on Friday. Kelsey Ann, can you give us the times and maybe drop the link for people to register? The link will be dropped in a minute. Let's just talk about time.
Yeah. Atlantic, it's 3:30 to 5. So then it would be 2:30 Eastern time and then 1:30 Central time.
Okay, perfect. So Charity and I co-facilitate. Charity is in Central, so we try to optimize our time to accommodate the different time zones. Yeah. So I hope to see you on Friday. And this is it for today. If there is a topic that you would like to explore or a leadership challenge you would like to explore on these live streams, please feel free to DM me, let me know. And I will see you either on Friday or next week, next Wednesday, for the next live stream. It was a
Okay.
pleasure.
Yeah.
See you.
Bye.
See you soon.